Hi, everybody. It's another day of headlines, so let's get started. Well, first here we've got Trump, and it's a continuation of all the top stories we've been hearing in the past this week, I think, about there's a concerted effort talking about Trump is now a dictator. And in fact, we have the AFP telling people that these warnings have spooked America. I don't know what evidence there is to this, that Americans have spooked. It says it's got Americans talking. But despite the truth of these warnings about him being a dictator, and despite some of the things he's said, I think a lot of the media have, maybe they cried wolf a little too much, even way back in 2016 when he was running against Hillary. And actually, some of these warnings may make some of his supporters, maybe a lot of them, like him even more. I know there was something from Kelsey Grammer where they got him to admit he did support a Republican, Trump, and saying that Trump's controversial style would probably be what it takes to break up the malaise, the status quo that prevails in Washington. And that has been a criticism in the past, saying that the Democrats and Republicans are both basically the same. They've got all the same advisors from all the same big banking companies, and they have the same economic policy. They just present it to the public in a different way to make the public think that there's some dire difference. And for some people, Trump represents that change. And there's some scary things even Trump is saying. Donald Trump refuses to rule out being a dictator. And again, this is a very right-leaning publication, the Daily Mail, Mail Online. And obviously, there's a lot of people on the right who would like to present this and try to get somebody else in place of Trump as the party nominee. Was this the one I wanted? This is people applauding that Trump says he's going to be a dictator. This is just what I'm talking about. The way the news is reported is so extreme on both sides. It is causing people to want to play into one side or another, thinking that's going to create change, or just to watch how the other side gets all panicky and upset when one thing or another happens. That's what happened when Trump was elected. Like it or not, it was interesting to see the panic and a lot of extreme rhetoric coming from the Democrats in that time. And when Biden was elected, the same thing, a lot of extreme, bizarre, unwarranted rhetoric from the Republicans concerning the dire state of everything. And I certainly, nobody could really make the claim, as a lot of the media has, that everything's fine in America right now, and there's certainly a reason a lot of people might want change, but I think people are in a mindset that they're willing to say anything about the opposition. They're not interested in convincing people who would vote for the opposition to come to their side. They just want to demonize everybody. So here is a man from another era, when freedom of speech was different, when people wanted to discuss big, important issues. This is Norman Lear, a producer, developer of many famous television shows, All in the Family, Sanford and Son, Maude, The Jeffersons, Different Strokes. Actually, if you read the arc of his shows, the development, it shows how in the 1970s, how Americans were so interested in confronting controversial issues and discussing them with each other and convincing each other of their viewpoints, sometimes yelling, but always with good points, never just trying to demonize one side or another. Well, mostly. But it's a lot different. Compare that time to now, and you'll see the difference that I'm making. And in fact, the very trajectory of his shows from All in the Family and Maude and Sanford and Son into something like the Facts of Life that goes into the 80s shows that by the 80s, people were not interested in social commentary that much anymore. It had changed. The political discourse had changed. So a show like Different Strokes, which was about some black kids being adopted by a rich white guy, it seems like, oh, okay, there's going to be a lot of social commentary here. Not much. It was a very bland show compared to the in-your-face politics of some of his early shows. So here was Norman Lear. Apparently, whatever he did, his genetics, the way he lived, he was 101 years old. He's a fascinating person to read about. I have his autobiography called Even This I Get to Experience, which I think is maybe it's some kind of a Yiddish sort of saying, but it is a great saying for when something happens in your life, you get really sick or you have some trouble, and you know you're going to have to go through it. So you could say to yourself, well, even this I get to experience. So anyway, this is Norman Lear, quite a fascinating person. And you see, it's certainly, his shows were a bastion of liberal causes and bringing that to the forefront. But again, compare it to now. His shows are willing to discuss these issues and try to convince them of the viewpoint as opposed to dictating or shouting or hectoring people. And in some cases, like in Archie Bunker, a lot of people who are right-leaning kind of found common cause with him, I'm sure, much to the chagrin of the producers. So that's Norman Lear. Okay. Here we have, going to give the footage over to the people who stormed into the Congress and on January 6, 2021, and they're going to blur it so the Justice Department can't charge the people. I mean, I've heard so many people try to say so many weird things about what happened on that day that clearly are not true. I mean, I think anybody who ended up being there, and the lesson from this is do not let yourself be put on the line and used for political causes. So whatever you end up trying to believe about what happened on January 6th, and I think it's pretty clear when you look at the footage, I think you could say, don't let yourself be a dupe, a drone, a pawn for somebody else's political ambitions. Not wise. Some shooting in Las Vegas. It's typical for America. Here we've got a RFK Jr. I always like to mention him because for some reason I get a lot more hits on my website when I mention him. This is a former Democrat, a son of RFK, the former Attorney General of the United States, who was running for president in '68. He probably would have been elected. He was assassinated just like his brother JFK was. So it was thought RFK was going to be a bastion of liberal ideas, but instead he kind of became a weird right-winger with a lot of strange views about vaccines, and he's running as an independent candidate. I wouldn't necessarily say everything is 100% terrible, but definitely since he's stepping outside of the mainstream, they got to find a lot of stuff to tear him down. And here they found, he was on Epstein's jet, just like a lot of big, powerful, famous people that you do not want to cross in America or maybe internationally. I'm not saying that Epstein was killed in prison. And it's happened that the cameras happen to be off, so we just have to take their word for it. I'm just saying it's very lucky probably for the people involved, and I don't know. It's a lot of. I've always have found it strange that people, when you get up in those high positions, that you want to indulge yourself in strange sex things. I don't know. Maybe I'm not the kind of person who would get that high of a position, so that's why I don't understand it. But a lot of people apparently did. Here's some more about Trump, trying to nail Trump to the wall. This is probably justified, but it's coming to the fore now because it's scaring a lot of people that Trump may win the primary starting next month in January. I think it's January 15th, 14th or 15th are the Iowa primaries. And the person who wins in the first few primaries, usually it's a difficult time unseating him going forward. And Trump is far out ahead. And that scares people both on the right and the left. So anything they can do now to get rid of him, that would suit a lot of people. More terrible things that are happening in the Middle East. We've talked a lot about that already. This is a fascinating thing. We mentioned this yesterday, where there's the hearing in Congress, and they kind of pinned one of these dumb university presidents down in an embarrassing statement where she was unwilling to condemn, she was unwilling to say that people calling for genocide against Jews would violate the university code of conduct. So people are piling on. Even the White House has had to chime in. Unbelievable that this needs to be said. It's unbelievable that these very ultra-leftist, apparently, university presidents are willing to tolerate calls for genocide. And I think everybody, especially in the U.S., if you come from a U.S. perspective, you want liberty to be able to say just about anything you want. But I never even considered there would be a liberty to call for genocide. That's just... I just never considered, should that be considered just free speech? I think one of the university presidents said, well, it would depend on the context. Would they accept like Nazi people, guys in a swastika talking about this? Would that be okay? I know in certain times in U.S. history, the left has fervently defended people in Nazi uniform spouting Nazi things, especially the Skokie, Illinois in the 70s. The ACLU came out and they said that they successfully got the First Amendment to apply to those Nazis who wanted to march through an area where there were a lot of Jewish Holocaust survivors. They said this is freedom of speech. So I don't know. When it came to 2016 after Trump got elected, and it seemed to empower a lot of weird right-wing stuff like Nazis who wanted to march, I thought, wow, what an amazing time we're going to live in again. The ACLU is going to come out and defend these Nazis to support Trump and to march around. But apparently ACLU had changed, and they don't know. They no longer believe that. They've completely changed. They don't believe in that kind of freedom of speech. So, yeah, it's times change, I guess. Here we've got Taylor Swift, Person of the Year on the cover of Time. I remember growing up always watching this, like it was a big thing to see who would be named. And then at one point in the 80s, the personal computer was the Person of the Year. And we thought, oh, that's cool, because everybody had their little personal computer. What the appeal is of Taylor Swift, I don't know. I barely know any of her songs other than Shake It Off, but she's got an appeal. That's for sure. You can't discount someone who's that popular. She's tapping into something, maybe some sort of ideals of traditional femininity in a time when there's a lot of feminist ideology going on. I don't really know what she's supposed to symbolize. Here we have, this is going to be important. They're going to be promoting this. up to the Iowa primaries, the middle of next month. They really, really want to get Nikki Haley or DeSantis to replace Trump. The powers that be in the Republican Party, thinking that Trump is too dangerous, he's too chaotic, too much baggage, then they can't control him. Who knows what changes he may entail? May become a dictator. He may break up some big companies that should be untouchable. And you see how all of these things could mix into people both supporting or not supporting Trump. And the media is going to play up all of this stuff to show these are other candidates you could choose instead of Trump. Okay, where was I? Oh, right. This is from yesterday here. We've got Liz Cheney also weighing third-party run. She's has a lot to say about Trump being a dictator, democracy at risk, this sort of thing. Of course, she also has a book on Amazon.com that she's promoting. And of course, we do see a lot of times when a person comes out in the media they're promoting a book or a concert, like front page of CNN for 7 days in a row, little puff pieces on a certain person or certain music artist. Beyonce is one of those where, they're reporting on her every day and people are stunned by her outfits, but this is paid promotion, I'm sure, for the new album that you'll discover is coming out. So here's Cheney is trying to build up for something, no doubt, a memoir and a warning. But if you don't want to read anything that's a warning or a memoir, this is a novel, my own novel that I wrote with my own mind, and I'm promoting here. This is a story of people living in the concrete modern metropolis, their hopes, their dreams, their fears, what drives them, what isolates them from each other, what pulls them together, the loves gained, the loves lost. It's on Amazon and Kindle right now, and please read it and let me know what you think. That was my little segue into my own book. Okay, we got some more headlines here. Biden faces... Okay, this is a new one that popped on here. I don't know what this is about. They want him to call for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas conflict. That might be the wisest thing. It's really not our problem, the U.S., to deal with. On the other hand, can you blame Israel for wanting to clean out Hamas? You know, this isn't really about the Palestinian issue. This is about Hamas, a terrorist organization that is controlled by other countries, such as Iran, that has become ensconced in half of the Palestinian Authority territory in Gaza. So I'm not sure why anybody would have an interest in allowing them to remain there. Let's give that land back to the Palestinians and the Palestinian Authority. I would not want to be in a position of being a crazy, wild, big star, because once they get one of these cases against you for assault of some sort, there seems to be an avalanche. People pile on. I don't even know what to say about that. Or people who would behave in that way. I was in Hollywood for a long time, doing many things. I never knew you could take liberties with people. I mean, everyone had heard of the casting couch, but that was supposed to be like a consensual thing, I guess. I never knew about any of this until years later. When you hear about what Harvey Weinstein did, holy cow, I would never imagine doing that in a million years. I don't think most people would. Here is some stuff on the other big war in the world, Ukraine, Russia. Another thing, pot boiling in the background. It's going to cost a lot of money for America, but it might be necessary for us to remain the world's policeman, either with arms or with loads of cash. But you can still understand how a lot of people are loath to spend more money into far-flung conflicts in this day and age. I don't know. I've got enough to work. I don't know why the media always puts out this stuff about dementia, Alzheimer's. I got enough to worry about. The next time I forget my car keys, these articles come back to me like this is going to be the first sign. Here's more about AI. These big companies, they're trying to control everything. Google, Microsoft, anything to get rid of having to pay people to do work. I don't know where that's leading. I don't know why that's not federally regulated. I don't know why these companies that are monopolizing the content and then using it without people allowing them to create all this AI stuff, this blurred plagiarism junk, why it's not regulated. We'll see what happens. This targeting costly meds, Biden admin asserts authority to seize certain drug patents. I'm an old capitalist person despite my hippie hair. But, the U.S. is unique among countries as being outrageously expensive. Many multiples. I had a friend who was doing some medical treatment overseas, and each treatment with this drug costs $5,000. It was the true drug. It was in a country that followed the patent rules, and it cost about $5,000 per treatment. This isn't like in India where they don't follow the patent rules and they just produce the drug once they figure out how to make it. And that's to contrast. So in this country, it costs $5,000. In most countries, it costs $5,000. In America, it costs $171,000 per treatment. The same thing would be $5,000 to $171,000. So the U.S. has a problem. And this problem where medical treatment costs so much, for whatever reason, it impacts the ability of business, of entrepreneurialism. It impacts capitalism, which I like. I want people to compete but you can't compete well when you're afraid that any minor injury will cause you to have to declare bankruptcy, which is the most common cause of bankruptcy, I believe, still in the United States. And we have to have some sort of reform, which certainly has to include the litigation liability costs, and there has to be some profiteering. I'm not sure what the issue is, but exactly, I don't think anybody does, and it's highly politicized. The left, the Democrats are heavily funded by trial lawyers for many years. They don't want the litigation to stop. Of course, litigation is necessary in the United States because Congress has refused to legislate a lot of proper controls against companies that are doing evil. So the only way to get back at them is through the courts. So this is a tangled mess for Americans. This is more fascinating stuff here going down in Venezuela. Venezuela had a referendum. Of course, Venezuela, one of the most chaotic economies on earth. And their bright ideas, we need to take over more countries. We need to rule more places chaotically. So they want this land that's over in Guyana that has a lot of oil. And so they had a referendum that said, should we invade and take that over? And they claim 98% of the people said yes. Others said that was probably rigged in some way. So we'll see where this is going. Venezuela is very slowly inching towards doing this. I think it's clear that they're gauging international opinion. You see with the multiple wars in Ukraine and Russia and in Israel and Gaza. And they can see back in the United States, there's not a lot of appetite for more big wars, either sending the money over through the government. There's been these protests And many people question why does the U.S. care what's Russia's doing over in the Crimea, in the Black Sea. So many countries like China as well. This situation is a signal for them. Might this be a time to press their territorial ambitions in the South China Sea, to pressure or maybe even invade Taiwan? Now might be a good time. And you see, Biden did start off his administration with a very chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, where we just let down all of the people in the country. It was just a small ongoing occupation, but it seemed that for political points only, they had to pull everything out and let the whole country collapse and go back to the Taliban. And even at the time, I didn't have the channel running at the time, but it seemed that all of the media, with one voice, referred to it as a forever war, where it was just an occupation that was maintaining a civil government that protected people's rights and women's rights. But the media colluded with the government in trying to say, war is terrible, they were killing women and children, we got to get out of there quickly. I don't know, it's done now. I mean, I wouldn't advocate going back into Afghanistan, but anyway, this is one of when the U.S.'s heavy hand of military armament and money seems to be lightening up for whatever reasons. You will see little countries here decide maybe it's time to make their move. What else do we have here? Teen hockey, ice hockey star has chest split in two by skate. Let's ban those skates. And finally, yeah, I saw this. This is one of those things, you got $2 billion, here's the super yacht. And it doesn't really say in these articles, these are just eye-catching, clickbaiting articles, but this is a company that makes ships, and they've floated this idea almost like it's a real thing, but it doesn't exist yet. They're just trying to tickle the fancy of some rich guy who wants a submarine yacht for $2 billion to go around the world. This seems like, even if you had $2 billion, this seems like so much trouble and danger. Why would you? I don't like being on the sea anyway, but I don't know why you'd want that. There we go. Rough seas. I don't want that. So anyway, that's pretty much the news for today. A lot of interesting things. We got wars. We got building up to the Iowa primaries next month. We got the move to get rid of Trump, to get rid of Biden and replace them with better candidates. And I've got my final thing, got my Art of War cards here. We're looking at a card every day. Pick a card. We see if it can tell us something about our lives, the world, the business. Faint in the east, act in the west. Okay. Here, I'll read it for you. The strategy, faint in the east, act in the west. Draw attention away from your plans with a suitable deception. Basis of this, an adversarial force that responds to a deception does not oppose your primary action. So you think about how you apply this to your life or your work. So, I mean, I think one of the things is, it's a way of saying, don't let people know, don't let your boss know like you're doing some other business. What your hobbies are. Make sure your hobbies are what people, make sure they think your attention is on one thing. Your hobbies, some innocuous sort of undertaking. Don't let anybody really know what your big goal is and what you're really working on all the time. Same thing with family and friends. People will, if you got a big goal, that means that you're stretching beyond everybody else in your friends and family. And a lot of people will try to tell you all these reasons why you shouldn't do it. And they often mean well sometimes, and some don't, but you don't want to get into that. So keep keep your mouth shut. I've said that on some of these other Art of War things. A lot of them have to do with don't everything you think, don't say. So anyway, those are the headlines for today. I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.